Shalom. Hello. And happy preparation day. This is the day before Sabbath, the week of traditional Passover by the Jewish calendar, which I believe is off. And over on MeWe, I was following David Wilbur, and he said this: May you all have a blessed and meaningful Passover celebration. This is why we celebrate the Passover. And I asked him, can the uncircumcised partake in Passover? And I quote Exodus 12:48 to 49. But if the sojourner sojourns with you and celebrates the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, then let him come near to celebrate it. And then he shall be like a native of the land, but no uncircumcised person may eat it. The same law applies to the native as the sojourner who sojourns among you. And Mr. Wilbur says they are only prohibited from eating the sacrificial meat. No, it says celebrates the Passover to Yahweh. Yes, it does also say they can't eat of the meat, but why would they be partaking in the other aspects of the festival? Like it says Exodus 12:19. For 7 days there shall be no dough with yeast found in your houses. Okay. And that person shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he is a stranger or native of the land. So you can do part of the festival, but not all of it. Because you admit here you have to go to the temple in Jerusalem, which is not what it says. This is, the Jewish interpretation. The temple is profane. It's a very profane thing. Why would Father Yah give us specific instructions on the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, to have it replaced by a man who didn't even wholeheartedly serve him? Which says that you shall have no temple of cut stone. Why would the chosen city be changed from Shechem to Jerusalem? See, I've come to the opinion that we are in a state where we cannot properly do these things. Can you remember them? Of course. Commemorate the miracle of the Pesach, of the Exodus. But you can't go to the chosen city. There is no restored priesthood. I certainly don't think that the Levites in Jerusalem are the restored priesthood, because they believe it's in Jerusalem and they believe the temple is stone. They don't even want to rebuild the tabernacle, which is so interesting. They want a temple of stone like the nations. I mean, here you look at in these Levites practice their temple singing in Jerusalem on Passover. What do you notice is missing from their garb? Where are the four corners? And I watched this one yesterday and saw the same thing.
Unfortunately, another year has gone by.
And this one, the box on the head that the idol of the New Testament also mentions. This Deuteronomy 6, right? This is where they get this idea from. You shall also tie them as a sign to your hand, and they shall be as frontlets on your forehead. You shall also write them on the doorpost of your house. See, they take this command as being literal, but it's not. It's talking about teaching your family, your sons, to speak of them when you sit in the house, when you walk on the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. And then you shall tie them as a sign on your hand. I mean, you really think Father is being literal that by tying the Torah to your hand, you'll remember to do it? By putting it on your forehead, you'll see things through that? I don't think it's literal. I really don't. I don't think it's literal. I don't think he wants you to take a scroll of Torah and tie it to the gatepost of your property.
And our Prime Minister has made, again, the wrong decision of not allowing us to bring the Paschal sacrifice, the Korban Pesach. But we are reading the words as we have always done throughout the generations. And we hope that God accepts those words in place in lieu of the Korban Pesach, which we should be bringing now. And we hope that next year the right decision will be made to allow us to bring it here on the Temple Mount.
See? On the Temple Mount. Well, there are two problems with that. Number one, the mount was not where the temple was located. The mount was where Fort Antonio was located. Why would the temple be at the highest place in Jerusalem, away from the water supplies, away from the springs? Sacrifice requires a constant supply of water. I mean, the temple is profane enough, but there's no way it was on the Temple Mount, as they call it. I I've studied this even when I was still in idolatry. That was where Fort Antonio was, where they could look out over the city. And they practice this idolatry of bowing down before the cut stones of the wall. So the end of Exodus 20. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, "This is what you shall say to the sons of Israel. You yourselves have seen that I have spoken to you from Shamayim. You shall not make any other Elohim besides me, Elohim of silver, Elohim of gold. You shall not make for yourselves. You shall make an altar of earth for me, and you shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen in every place where I cause my name to be remembered. I will come to you and bless you. And if you make an altar of stone for me, you shall build it of cut stones. You shall not build it of cut stones. For if you wield your chisel on it, you will profane it. And you shall not go up by steps to my altar, so that your nakedness will be exposed on it." Think about that. Like, everything about this location is profane. And this is one of the things I talked about with David, how David was dancing profanely in front of the Ark of the Covenant and proclaiming that he is holy. Yet he exposed his nakedness before it and before the people. So the other part of that is, why would Father give these explicit instructions, explicit, on how to build the tabernacle if he really wanted a temple of cut stone? There's no reason for it. But the more profane thing is what they think this is. And I talked about this in the last video. Like, the Lamb of God, right? No, the Lamb was not of God. That was why Yahweh commanded it be destroyed in the fire. It was a symbol of Egypt. And one of the most interesting verses Father's shown me is Isaiah 36:6. Behold, you have relied on the staff of this broken reed, on Egypt, on which if a man leans, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, who all rely on him. And it is so interesting because this is really the only passage that talks about a hand being pierced. And did he rely on Egypt? Yes. The author of Matthew has him running away to Egypt to escape the wrath of Herod. Even though the prophet Isaiah, the prophet Hosea says, you will not return to Egypt. Now, what about this reed? Now, that's interesting as well. Pilate gives him a reed staff. Like, why a broken reed staff? And I think it's all intentional. It's all pointing us to these things. So that if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, when you see these things, you realize what is being said. And where can we find another place where it talks about this? Zechariah 13. On that day, a fountain will be opened up for the house of David and for the inhabitants of Jerusalem for sin and for defilement. It'll come about on that day, declares Jehovah of armies, that I will eliminate the names of the idols from the land, and they will no longer be remembered. And I shall remove the prophets and the unclean spirit from the land. If anyone still prophesies, then his father and mother who gave birth to him will say, you shall not live because you have spoken falsely in the name of Jehovah. And his father and mother who gave birth to him shall pierce him through when he prophesies. And it's interesting because, one of the 300 prophecies they talk about is Zechariah 13 talking about this. And someone will say to him, what are these wounds between your arms? Then he will say, these with which was wounded with by my friends. Um, yeah, it's because he's a false shepherd. And this is what it was really interesting. In Matthew 16, he makes several false prophecies. The Pharisees and the Sadducees came up, putting up Jesus to the test, and they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. I have no idea why they would do this. This is like directly against Deuteronomy 13. But he replied to them, when it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, there will be a storm today, for the sky is red and threatening. You know how to discern the appearance in the sky, but are unable to discern the signs of the times. And see, all goes back to like these earlier writings prophesying of an immediate return. An evil and adulterous generation wants a sign, and so a sign will not be given to it except the sign of Jonah. And he left them and went away. Did the Pharisees and the Sadducees see the sign of Jonah? Now, they claim this is about the resurrection, but the sign of Jonah is about mercy. The sign was not given to the Pharisees. Now, one could say, well, they were an evil and adulterous generation. Well, uh, that's his accusation. But it's interesting, the charismatics believe that they have to seek signs and wonders today. And when you tell them it's an evil and adulterous generation that wants a sign or a wonder, they tell you that doesn't apply to them, even though the same man tells you that if you're doing a sign and wonder, you're not doing the will of the Father, and he'll tell you that he never knew you. So a little further on, Peter confesses he is the Messiah. And this is one of the things I think that, deceives you is the transliteration of the Greek word Christos, and Christos means anointed. Imagine if it says, "You are the anointed, the Son of the living God." And I don't know, like, where this idea came that the anointed was the Son of God. Maybe Psalm 2, but it's not something in Torah. Blessed are you, Simon Bar Jonah, which means the son of Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it. This is an interesting prophecy. It's one that's ignored greatly. And I remember telling my Mormon family, my dad, like, look at what this is saying. If what Joseph Smith is saying is true, that the church has been overrun by lies, then how could this not be a false prophecy? At the time, I didn't take it further because really, like Luther's attack on Roman Catholicism, if Luther is right that the Catholic Church had gone astray, tell me how the gates of Hades were not overpowering it. And there's no doubt that, that it was. I mean, even in that day, and I've gone over this in prior videos, how the born again experience was sexual perversion of youth, young men, that they would stand in a room and literally summon demons into the priest to rape these young boys. And if they didn't enjoy it, they proved they were born again. It's just shocking to hear that. It's so disturbing, but this is what they did. And it just got worse and worse. The Catholic Church in Luther's day was telling men and women that they could pay a fee and have their sins forgiven, be made righteous through a bribe. I forgot what they called that. Indulgences, that's right. Yeah, so they would pay their indulgence tax to the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church would remit their sin. The Catholic answer tracks the myths about indulgences. But you think about like this idea. How did Luther change this? He's still selling forgiveness. He still is teaching you that evil is good and good is evil. Look at Isaiah 5:20. It's so interesting. Like, once you know, right? Isaiah 5:20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who substitute darkness for light. What's light? Torah. So what's darkness? Anything that comes against Torah. And light for darkness, who substitute bitter for sweet. What's bitter? Blood. The bitter water is blood. It's sweet. the grape juice, right? So you replace the grape juice and call it something bitter and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes. And you know, so many of these Christians, like, they want to believe they're hearing from God. They profoundly say, "Thus saith the Lord." Okay, what you're saying is not in Torah. It's not even in the New Testament for most of it. It just is from their imagination, clever in their own sight. Woe to those that are heroes in drinking wine. Like, it just hammers it home. And valiant men in mixing intoxicating drink, who declare the wicked innocent for a bribe. Nowadays, the papers might call it indulgence-gate, but at the time, corruption was uncommon in the church's highest office. Leo X was Pope in Rome, member of the high-living de Medici family. He dished out bishoprics to his favorite relatives and tapped the Vatican treasury to support his extravagant lifestyle. When the money ran out, he made use of a fairly new fundraising scheme, selling the forgiveness of sins. For a fee, bereaved relatives could get a deceased loved one out of purgatory. At the right price, they could also save up for their own future sins. Declaring the wicked innocent for a bribe. But that's what grace is. Take away the rights of the ones who are right. And this is what the church does. Like, even today, if you preach righteousness in Yahweh, what do they say? That you're evil, you're wicked, you aren't righteous. And you hear the same thing from the Jews. You shouldn't be reading Torah. You shouldn't be doing the Sabbath. You're not righteous. And those of us walking down this path were attacked from both sides, from family, from friends, from strangers. It's a bold path to walk. It truly is. Like, if you are not bold, you're going to get mowed over. And I want to talk about some other false prophecies in the Matthew 16. And because, you know, this is so powerful and Christians just miss it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Like, okay, how many of you even know what he's saying here? Because this is a messianic prophecy that he's having Peter fulfill. Peter. In Isaiah 22:22, then I will put the key of the house of David on his shoulder. When he opens it, no one will shut it, and when he shuts it, no one will open it. This Isaiah 20:22 is about the Messiah. And I don't know if the New Testament writers didn't understand that, and they thought they could just have him off shoot the keys while he's away getting milk. I don't know. It's very strange because he does the same thing in John 21. Jesus said, "Tend my sheep." Again, what is he doing? He's declaring him to be the Messiah, the shepherd. If you look at the end of Isaiah 44, it says in verse 28, "It is I who says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd." And this is what JC is doing to Peter. He is my shepherd, tend my sheep. He has the keys to the kingdom of David, right? Isaiah 22:22. This is very interesting, right? Why is Peter being anointed the Messiah? Because the Roman Catholic Church put that in there to support their religion. Read Psalm 89. I will sing of the graciousness of Yahweh forever. To all generations I will make your faithfulness known in my mouth. For I have said, graciousness will be built up forever. In the heavens you will be established your faithfulness. I made a covenant with my chosen. I have sworn to my servant David. I will establish your descendants forever. I will build up your throne to all generations. The heavens will praise your wonders, Yahweh, your faithfulness also in the assembly of the holy ones. For who in the skies is comparable to Yahweh? Who among the sons of the mighty is like Yahweh? God greatly feared in the council of the holy ones, and awesome above all those who are around him. Yahweh, Elohim of armies, who is like you, mighty Yahweh? Your faithfulness all surrounds you. The rule of the sea. When those waves arise, you calm them. You can carry yourself and crush Rahab, who is like one is slain. You scattered your enemies with your mighty arm. The heavens are yours. The earth is also yours. The world it all contains, you have established them. The north and the south, you have created them. Tabor and Hermon shout for joy at your name. You have a strong arm. Your hand is mighty. Your right hand is exalted. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Mercy and truth go before you. Blessed are the people who know the joyful sound, Yahweh. They walk in the light of your face, and in your name they rejoice all day, and by your righteousness they exalted. You are the glory of their strength, and by your favor our horn is exalted. For your shield belongs to Yahweh, and our king to the Holy One of Israel. Once you spoke in a vision to your godly ones, and I said, I have given help to the one who is mighty. I have exalted one chosen from the people. I have found my servant David. With my holy oil I have anointed him, with whom my hand will have established, my arm will also strengthen him. The enemy will not deceive him, nor will the son of wickedness afflict him. Well, let's look at this right here. I mean, this is why Psalms are not to be read as doctrine. The enemy will not deceive him. Okay, so when Satan tempted David, what book is that in? Yes, the First Chronicles 21. Then Satan stood up against Israel and incited David to count Israel, right? Because it was a sin for him to take the census, but it says the accuser, Hasatan, incited David to count Israel. But Psalm 89 says the enemy will not deceive him, but the enemy deceived him. Psalms are not doctrine. It's and another one to really look at here, it says, no, Nubs, the flesh does not tempt you. Your spirit is the problem. You lack self control. Look at Genesis 4. Then Jehovah said to Cain, why are you angry, and why is your face gloomy? If you do well, see, what part of us does well? The spirit cannot act without the flesh. The flesh is what does well. The flesh is what God judges us by what we do. If you do well, will your face not be cheerful? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door, inside your heart, inside your spirit. And it's desirous for you, but you must master it. You must have self control over that temptation in your heart, in your spirit. So, the other part of this that I don't think you're realizing is that God's covenants are conditional. In 1 Samuel 13:13, what does it say? But Samuel said to Saul, you have acted foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of Yahweh your Elohim, which he commanded you, for Yahweh would now have established your kingdom over Israel forever, right? He would have established it with Saul forever, but now your kingdom shall not endure. Yahweh has sought for himself a man after his own heart, and Yahweh has appointed him ruler over his people because you have not kept what Yahweh commanded. So everyone assumes that's David. But look at what it says about David in the next book. After he killed and murdered Uriah and stole his wife. An everlasting covenant, it's conditional, Nubs. It's conditional. That's what I'm showing you here. After David sinned, what does it say? You yourself are that man. And this is what Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, says. It is I who anointed you, made him Messiah as king over Israel. It is I who rescued you from the hand of Saul. I also gave you your master's house and put into your master's wives into your care. And I gave you the house of Israel and Judah, and that had been too little. But I would have added many more like these. Why have you despised the word of Yahweh by doing evil in his sight? You have struck and murdered Uriah the Hittite with the sword. You have taken his wife as your wife, and you have slaughtered him with the sword of the sons of Ammon. Now think about this, Nubs. You believe the murder of Jesus covers sin. Did the murder of Uriah, a righteous man, cover David's sin? No, it's not possible. You cannot cover sin with sin. And look what it further says. Why have you despised the word of Yahweh by doing evil in his sight? This was a man after Yahweh's heart that despised his commandments. Now then, the sword shall never leave your house. This is the same thing he told Saul. God's covenant is everlasting and conditional. Him making an everlasting covenant doesn't mean it's not conditional. It's conditional. I mean, look at what he says in the Torah, in Deuteronomy 29, not 298. Now it is not with you alone that I am making this covenant and oaths with, but those who are stand here with us today in the presence of Yahweh your Elohim, and with those who are not with us here today. For you know how we lived in the land of Egypt, and how we passed through the midst of the nations through which you passed. Moreover, you have seen their abominations, their idols made of wood and stone, silver, gold, and how they made them, so that there will not be among you a man or a woman or family or tribe whose heart turns away today from Yahweh your Elohim to go to serve the Elohim of the Gentiles. That there will not be among you a root bearing poisonous fruit and wormwood. And it shall be when he hears the words of this curse, that he will consider himself fortunate in his heart, saying, I will do well, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart, in order to destroy the watered land with the dry. And Jehovah will not be willing to forgive him, but rather the anger of Jehovah and his wrath will burn against that person, and every curse that is written in this book will lie upon him, and Jehovah will wipe him out from under heaven. And Jehovah will single him out for disaster from all the tribes of Israel, in accordance with all the curses of the covenant which is written in the book of the law. What you're reading is what just happened to David that we read earlier. It's conditional. Yes, thank you, Nubs. And they sell this idea that we should have unconditional love. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about in Matthew 6, how this is a clear sign that the earliest writers didn't believe that his sacrificial murder covered sin. Look what it says, the Lord's Prayer. Pray then in this way: Our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done. Now, it'd be interesting to break this really down. Is Jehovah's kingdom absent from earth? No. I mean, read Psalm 2. Psalm 2 says what? That his kingdom is throughout the earth. Ask of me, and I will certainly give you the nations as your inheritance, the ends of the earth as your possession. The whole earth belongs to Yahweh. His kingdom is throughout all the earth, all the lands. No, the earliest writers were definitely not disciples. Uh, the Gospels we have are really They're an amalgamation. That's the word I'm looking for. Like it's, and you see this with the contradictions. Like how in Matthew 5:21, 22, it says that if you call another man a fool, the fiery Gehenna will is waiting for us. It's speculation, I agree, but it's proven by the contradictions. In Matthew 23, he calls the Pharisees fools. Did he forget that anyone who calls another man a fool is guilty to the fiery Gehenna? And John has full of these. Like the Gospel of John, he is talking to Mary and tells Mary, "Do not touch me. I have not ascended to heaven yet." And then just a moment later, in what is clearly an addition, he's telling Thomas to stick his hand inside his side. And then the book ends. You look at the end of John 20, it's clearly an ending. Like many more things could be written, but this is all I've got. And then it has a whole nother chapter about Peter being anointed shepherd that the Catholic Church clearly added to support their apostolic lineage. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Is there any time that Yahweh's will not be done? Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. See, it connects this idea that your sin is forgiven by forgiving others, not by believing in Him. For if you forgive other people for their offenses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. Now, that's not Torah, but it also doesn't agree with New Testament theology of putting your faith in Him to have your sins forgiven. Even in our sin, His will is done. Look at Joseph, right? Joseph was put into the well and then sold into slavery. And then in slavery, he's lifted up and exalted and allowed to save his brethren through their sin. I agree. The Creator creates evil and good. That's Isaiah 45:7. Now, this is an interesting passage, Nubs, but John doesn't agree with Jesus and the synoptics because John says that your brother and sister is one who believes the same exact thing as him, confessing that Jesus is the Son of God. And you know Exodus 4:22 disagrees with that, right? Then you shall say to Pharaoh, this is what Yahweh says, Israel is my son, my firstborn. Hosea 11, which the Matthew 2:15 misquotes. When Israel was a youth, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. So he's saying that the son is Jesus, which contradicts Torah and the prophet Hosea, but also he says that your brother is only those that believe the same thing as him. Even other Christians, John called Antichrist if they didn't believe the same thing. He did not love all people, which is interesting, as I said, because, when the Pharisees ask Jesus, who is my brother? He gives them an example of a Samaritan man who goes and helps a Jewish man that was beaten by thugs. His contracts are good. It's based on obedience. Yeah, there are conditional contracts throughout the land, Nubs. You know that. Like, take a mortgage. like a simple mortgage. What happens if you don't pay your mortgage payment? They have in the contract that they have a right to take the house and the property back. It's conditional. That doesn't make it arbitrary. I don't put much stock in the Piso connection. Um, there's also some that say that the Gospels are writing about Titus's conquering of Jerusalem. I don't really put a lot of stock in that. I don't think that's what was happening. I think they truly believed he was going to come back in the first century. And when he didn't, the later writings changed it to be more spiritual. Fissures? Oh, praise Yah. I put all my stock and trust in Yahweh, but I know his promises are conditional on obedience. And I know his character. He would not use the murder of an innocent man and command you to drink blood. No, the Bible does not say that. This is a Christian misinterpretation of Daniel 9. Daniel 9 was about the Babylonian exile. See, you have to know what is being said in context. While I was still speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of the people Israel, presenting my plea before Yahweh, my Elohim, on behalf of the holy mountain of my God, while still speaking, the man, Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision previously, came to me in my extreme weariness about the time of the evening offering. And he instructed me and talked with me and said, Daniel, I have come now to give you insight with understanding. At the beginning of your pleas, command the issue, and I will tell you, because you are highly esteemed, so pay attention to the message and gain understanding of the vision. 70 weeks, and this is where that comes from. 70 weeks was not about the future. I don't doubt you've studied it, but you have a wrong interpretation. See, the 70 Sabuo is about the missed Sabbaths. Look at 2nd Chronicles 36. To fulfill the word of Yahweh by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had enjoyed its Sabbaths. All the days of its desolation, it kept the Sabbath until 70 years were complete. See, this was about the missed Shemitah, the 7-year Sabbaths. They missed 490 years of the Shemitah. If you're okay, why would you boast in that, dude? Why would you say that? Like, but the prophet who speaks the word presumptuously in my name, a word which I have not commanded him to speak, or which speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet shall die. You really want to go down that road? The covenant is permanent and conditional. It is everlasting, but it is also conditional. No, no one needs a new covenant. The covenant is eternal and everlasting, but it is conditional. It's conditional on whether or not you are willing to obey the Torah. I'm telling you to be careful with what you're saying. That's why I read this warning from Deuteronomy 18:20 to 22. I don't claim that I'm speaking for Yehovah. Correct. There is no need for Jesus. Just follow the rules. I mean, look at what Isaiah said in the context of Isaiah 53. Isaiah 55, which is just 2 chapters later. Seek Yehovah, right? Seek Yehovah. This is a perfect time for the prophet Isaiah to say, seek Jesus, seek Yeshua. But he doesn't. He says, seek Yehovah while he may be found. Call upon him while he may be near. And then what? Let the wicked abandon his way and the unrighteous person his thoughts, and let him return to Yehovah. Right, it doesn't. Look at Jeremiah 3, which is a passage that talks about him divorcing Israel, right? And then Yehovah said to me, in the days of King Josiah, have you seen what faithless Israel did? She went up on every hill, under every leafy tree, and she prostituted herself there. Yet I thought, after she has done all these things, she will return to me. But she did not return, and her treacherous sister Judah saw it. And I saw all the adulteries of faithless Israel. I had sent her away and given her a certificate of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah did not fear, but she went and prostituted herself also. And because of the thoughtlessness of her prostitution, she defiled the land and committed adultery with stones and trees. Yet, in spite of all of this, her treacherous sister Judah did not return to me with all her heart, but rather in deception. Well, what do you mean by any name? Yehoshua, son of Nun, has the same name. Yehoshua, which is in Aramaic, Yeshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest in the days of Ezra, has the same name. And this comes from the word salvation, which is a feminine noun about him saving people. But in the concept that you're talking about, in the New Testament concept, no, it's not. Look what it says after he says that I have given them a certificate of divorce, because this is one of the central premises that Christianity uses for the need for this, right? And Jehovah said to me, faithless Israel has proved herself to be more righteous than treacherous Judah. Go and proclaim these words toward the north and say, return, faithless Israel, declares Jehovah. See, he just issued him a certificate of divorce, but he's saying they can return. I will not look at you in anger, for I am gracious, declares Jehovah. I will not be angry forever. On only acknowledge your wrongdoing. Same as Isaiah. Acknowledge your sin. Turn from it. That you have revolted against Jehovah your Elohim, and have scattered your favors to the strangers under every leafy tree. And you have not obeyed my voice, declares Jehovah. Return, you faithless sons, declares Jehovah, for I am a master to you. And I will take you one from a city and two from a family, and I bring you to Zion. Do you see where in that they had to come through Jesus? Right. Return to Yehovah, not to Jesus. And acknowledge your wrongdoing. Learn to do what's right. All of these go back to the promise in Torah, Deuteronomy 30. So be when all these things have come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have placed before you, you call them to mind in all the nations where Yahweh your Elohim has scattered you, and you return to Yahweh your Elohim, obey him with all your heart and soul in accordance with everything that I am commanding you today, you and your sons, then Yahweh your Elohim will restore you from captivity and have compassion on you. See the everlasting covenant. If they obey again, they will be restored to the land. That he didn't send them. And remember, we went over the son is Israel. Exodus 4:22. and Hosea 11. The Roman concept is nowhere. I'm not sure why you're asking to do that. And I don't call it that Old Testament anymore. I call it the Torah and the prophets. The Creator created creation. I don't call it nature. I call it creation because that's what it is. It's a created substance. Nature implies that it's natural, it follows natural law. The Creator created creation and the laws. The Torah is a different book. You don't think the Torah is the five books of Moses? I just said that Yah created the natural law, but I don't call it that because that word implies naturalism, that there is no creator. A little bit. I recommend most people get Dr. Everett Fox's translation, as it's the best I've read. I thank you for the conversation, Nubs. I've got to get going and get some things done this morning.